Pool visitors thought he was just another maintenance worker who kept their water clean and safe for swimming. But when chemical terrorists targeted their community, they learned that some protectors know more about dangerous substances than anyone should ever have to. Welcome to True Human Tales. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden expertise and protective instincts, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button. These moments of quiet heroism deserve to be remembered. Riverside Community Pool Complex sprawled across 5 acres of suburban Phoenix like an oasis in the desert, featuring an Olympic-sized main pool, a children's waiting area, and diving platforms that had hosted summer memories for 3 generations of local families. The facility served over 2,000 residents and was the heart of community life from April through October. Robert Garcia had been the head pool maintenance supervisor for 6 years, arriving every morning at 6 a.m. to ensure the water was crystal clear and perfectly balanced for the day's swimmers. He was 58 years old, with weathered hands, graying hair usually hidden under a faded baseball cap, and the kind of methodical approach to his work that made pool managers sleep well at night. "Bobby's the best we've ever had," pool director Sarah Chen often told the city council. "Parents trust him completely. The water chemistry is always perfect, equipment runs smoothly, and he's got an eye for detail that catches problems before they become disasters." Robert took pride in his work. He knew every pipe, pump, and filter in the complex. He could diagnose equipment problems by sound alone and had an almost supernatural ability to maintain perfect water chemistry. Parents would specifically ask him about water quality when bringing toddlers for their first swimming lessons. "Mr. Bobby," 6-year-old Emma Foster would call out every morning as her mother signed her in for swim class. "Is the water perfect today?" "Always perfect for you, Princess," Robert would reply with a grandfatherly smile. "I make sure of that." The community trusted Robert completely. He'd been background checked by the city, bonded and licensed, with references that praised his attention to detail and commitment to safety. He lived alone in a modest apartment, drove a reliable pickup truck, and seemed to find genuine satisfaction in ensuring that families could enjoy clean, safe water recreation. What the community didn't know was that Robert Garcia had spent 18 years as a chemical weapons specialist with the U.S. Army's 23rd Chemical Battalion. What they didn't know was that he'd served in classified operations involving chemical warfare defense, hazardous material disposal, and counter-terrorism missions that appeared on no public record. What they didn't know was that the man who kept their pool water safe had once been the military's foremost expert in detecting, neutralizing, and surviving chemical weapons attacks. Robert had retired from military service 6 years ago after a mission involving chemical terrorists that had cost him half his unit. The trauma and guilt had driven him to seek peace in work that protected families instead of hunting threats, and he'd found healing in the simple satisfaction of maintaining clean, safe water for children to play in. Thursday morning started like every Thursday for the past 6 years. Robert arrived at the pool complex at 6 a.m., 2 hours before opening, to perform his comprehensive daily assessment. Water chemistry, filtration systems, circulation pumps, chemical storage. Habits from his military days where attention to detail meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. He began with water testing, taking samples from 12 different points throughout the complex: pH levels, chlorine concentration, alkalinity, dissolved solids, measurements that seemed routine to any observer but represented a complex understanding of chemical interactions that few people possessed. Robert moved through his checklist with military precision disguised as maintenance routine: equipment inspection, chemical inventory, safety system verification. His movements were methodical, professional, though they appeared casual to anyone watching. What looked like standard pool maintenance was actually a chemical safety specialist ensuring optimal conditions. The first swimmers arrived at 8 a.m., early morning lap swimmers and water aerobics enthusiasts who preferred the quieter hours. Robert knew most of them by name and routine. Mrs. Patterson, who'd been swimming laps every morning since her husband's passing. The Chen family, whose elderly grandmother found relief from arthritis pain in the warm pool. Young athletes training for high school swim teams. "Morning, Robert," called out Jennifer Williams, setting up poolside for her water aerobics class. "How's our water looking today?" "Perfect as always, Mrs. Williams," Robert replied, checking his latest test results. "Temperature's exactly where you like it. Chemistry's spot on." By 10 a.m., the pool complex was busier with families arriving for children's swimming lessons, recreational swimming, and pool parties. Robert positioned himself where he could monitor all areas while maintaining unobtrusive visibility. His background in chemical safety had taught him to read both equipment conditions and human behavior with equal skill. Robert's enhanced awareness never fully shut off. Even in this peaceful environment, part of his mind automatically tracked air quality, water clarity, equipment performance, and any anomalies that might suggest problems. 18 years of chemical weapons training had made threat detection as natural as breathing. What pool visitors saw was a dedicated maintenance worker who took exceptional pride in his job. What they didn't realize was that Robert Garcia was one of fewer than 200 people in the United States with his level of expertise in chemical threat identification and response. At 11:47 a.m., Robert was conducting his midday water chemistry check when he detected something that made his blood run cold. The odor was faint, almost imperceptible to anyone without specialized training, but unmistakable to someone who'd spent 18 years working with hazardous chemicals. Chloramine gas. Not the normal chlorine smell that pools always carried, but a specific chemical signature that indicated dangerous gas formation. Robert's enhanced olfactory training, developed through years of chemical detection work, caught the anomaly that others would miss entirely. Robert continued his testing routine while his awareness shifted into a mode he hadn't accessed in 6 years. His breathing remained steady, his movements calm, but every chemical weapons protocol had quietly activated. This wasn't normal pool chemistry. This was something else entirely. He took additional water samples from strategic points throughout the complex, testing for compounds that wouldn't appear on standard pool maintenance equipment. Robert's personal testing kit contained chemical analysis tools that went far beyond normal pool maintenance requirements, equipment he'd maintained out of habits formed during military service. The results confirmed his worst fears. Someone had introduced industrial-grade chemicals into the pool system that would create toxic gas when mixed with standard pool chlorination. The reaction was designed to be delayed, building concentrations slowly until it reached lethal levels. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't equipment malfunction. This was chemical terrorism, targeting a crowded public facility filled with families and children. Robert activated his emergency protocols while maintaining his maintenance worker facade. He quietly evacuated the immediate pool area by announcing routine maintenance procedures, then contacted emergency services using codes he'd hoped never to need again. "This is Robert Garcia, Facility Maintenance Supervisor. I need immediate hazmat response to Riverside Community Pool. We have a code yellow situation with potential civilian exposure." Robert's transformation was immediate but invisible to pool visitors. To any observer, he was still the dedicated maintenance worker addressing a routine issue. But inside, 18 years of chemical weapons training and counterterrorism experience had activated with deadly precision. He began implementing emergency chemical containment procedures that went far beyond normal pool maintenance protocols. Ventilation system modifications, water circulation adjustments, chemical neutralization processes, actions that appeared routine but were actually advanced hazmat response techniques. "Attention pool visitors," Robert announced through the facility's PA system, his voice calm and professional. "We're conducting routine maintenance that requires temporary closure of the pool area. Please gather your belongings and move to the parking area for your safety." Families began collecting their things, most assuming this was standard procedure. But Robert was conducting a full chemical threat assessment, calculating dispersal patterns, exposure timelines, and neutralization requirements with expertise that few people in the world possessed. His enhanced chemical detection equipment revealed the full scope of the threat. Multiple chemical agents had been introduced into different parts of the facility's water system, designed to create a cascading reaction that would fill the enclosed pool building with toxic gas. The timing suggested the attack was planned for maximum occupancy, peak family swimming hours. Robert reached into his equipment locker for items he'd hoped never to need again. military-grade chemical detection devices, neutralization compounds, and personal protective equipment that most pool maintenance workers didn't carry. His hands moved with muscle memory from countless training exercises and real-world chemical threat responses. The rational part of his mind suggested waiting for professional hazmat teams, but Robert knew the timeline. The chemical reaction would reach dangerous levels within 20 minutes. By the time specialized units arrived and assessed the situation, dozens of families would be exposed to potentially lethal concentrations. Robert was the only person within 50 miles with the expertise to neutralize this specific type of chemical attack. Robert moved through the pool complex with tactical precision that belonged to his military training, not his maintenance work. 18 years of chemical weapons experience had taught him to navigate contaminated environments while implementing countermeasures under time pressure. He began systematic neutralization of the chemical agents, using compounds and techniques that he'd learned in classified military programs. His approach was methodical, professional, designed to break the chemical reaction chain before it could reach toxic concentrations. The terrorists had chosen their chemicals cleverly, compounds that would appear routine to standard testing but would interact with pool treatment systems to create delayed toxic effects. But they'd made one critical error. They'd assumed the facility was protected by standard civilian maintenance procedures. Robert's chemical expertise went far beyond civilian pool maintenance. He identified each compound, mapped the reaction pathways, and implemented neutralization strategies that had been developed for chemical warfare defense. His movements were precise, efficient, born from years of training in environments where mistakes meant mass casualties. Working alone, Robert prevented a chemical attack that could have killed or seriously injured dozens of families. His intervention was invisible to the evacuated pool visitors, who saw only routine maintenance procedures. But emergency responders arriving on scene found evidence of sophisticated chemical terrorism that had been neutralized by someone with military-grade expertise. Detective Maria Santos was first on scene with hazmat teams, finding Robert calmly securing the facility and providing technical briefings to chemical response specialists. She stared at the man who'd just prevented a mass casualty chemical attack. "Mr. Garcia, I need to understand what happened here. The hazmat team is saying you prevented something that could have killed dozens of people." Robert looked toward the parking lot where families waited safely, many recognizing their trusted pool maintenance worker, despite the emergency vehicles surrounding the facility. "Someone introduced chemical agents into our water system. I implemented standard neutralization protocols." "Standard for who? You maintain a community pool." Robert's smile was gentle but carried weight. "I maintain water quality, detective. Sometimes that requires more expertise than people realize." The chemical terrorism cell's methods sent shockwaves through federal law enforcement. They had developed a sophisticated attack using readily available industrial chemicals that would appear harmless individually, but would create toxic gas when combined with standard pool treatment systems. Special Agent Jennifer Walsh from the FBI's Chemical Terrorism Task Force reviewed Robert's response with professional amazement. "Mr. Garcia, your identification and neutralization prevented what could have been the deadliest domestic chemical attack in decades. These compounds were specifically designed to exploit civilian water treatment vulnerabilities." Robert studied the evidence with analytical precision that came from 18 years of chemical weapons expertise. They understood basic chemistry, but underestimated civilian chemical safety protocols. "Why didn't you tell the community about your background?" People would have felt safer knowing a former chemical weapons specialist was maintaining their pool. Robert looked out toward the pool complex where families were already asking when they could return to swimming. "Because I wanted them to trust their pool maintenance worker, not fear their water supply. Families deserve to enjoy swimming without thinking about chemical warfare." The investigation revealed that the terrorist cell had specifically chosen Riverside Community Pool because their reconnaissance suggested it was a typical civilian facility with standard maintenance procedures. They'd observed Robert for weeks, categorizing him as a non-threat with basic pool cleaning skills. They had catastrophically underestimated the man who'd been keeping their water safe. 2 days later, Robert returned to his morning routine at the pool complex. The facility felt different now. News crews lingered at the edges, federal agents conducted follow-up interviews, and pool visitors looked at their longtime maintenance worker with new understanding. But when the first families arrived for morning swimming, children still ran toward the pool area with the same excitement they'd always shown. "Mr. Bobby," 6-year-old Emma Foster called out, clutching her swimming goggles, "is the water perfect today?" Robert knelt down to her level, his voice carrying the same gentle authority it always had. "Perfect as always, Princess. And you know what? It always will be." Emma's mother approached hesitantly. "Robert, we saw the news. We had no idea you were what you used to do." Robert stood up, adjusting his maintenance cap. "I'm still the same person, ma'am. I'm here to make sure families like yours can enjoy safe, clean water. That's never going to change." As the morning progressed, more parents approached Robert with gratitude and questions. The story had spread through the community. Their trusted pool maintenance worker was a decorated chemical weapons specialist who'd spent nearly 2 decades protecting America from chemical threats. But Robert noticed something important. The children still saw him exactly the same way. To them, he wasn't a former chemical weapons specialist or a terrorism prevention hero. He was just Mr. Bobby, the nice man who made sure the pool water was always perfect for swimming. That's exactly how he wanted it. Robert Garcia continued maintaining the Riverside Community Pool for 4 more years before retiring completely at age 62. The pool facility where he'd served was eventually equipped with advanced chemical detection systems in his honor, though Robert had insisted they keep the upgrades subtle. He never spoke publicly about his military career or the events of that Thursday morning. When reporters asked, he'd simply say that he was a pool maintenance worker who'd done his job. But the community knew better. They understood that Mr. Bobby was the kind of person who would always stand between them and danger, whether it came from dirty filters or something much worse. Sometimes heroes don't retire from service. They just find new ways to protect the people they care about. Sometimes the most dangerous person at the pool is the maintenance worker with the patient smile and the chemical testing kit, carrying skills and expertise that most people can't imagine. Robert Garcia had tried to leave his chemical warfare days behind, but when terrorists brought poison to the place where children learned to swim, he remembered that some knowledge carries the responsibility to protect others. A pool full of laughter, the right of families to enjoy clean, safe water, the promise that good people will always stand between evil and those who cannot protect themselves. That's the most important chemistry of all. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Robert? Someone who seemed like just a dedicated worker until the moment they revealed the depths of their expertise and commitment? Someone whose quiet presence made you feel safer without knowing why? Tell me in the comments where are you watching from today and share their story with us. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. We publish human stories that matter every single week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story. And remember, sometimes the person keeping your water safe knows more about protection than you could ever imagine.